said, remember when they were desegregating Linfield, the neighborhood? There was, 70 homes built at one, suburbia. And I told you, and there was a black family moving in, and there was people who were down there protesting. I told you not to go down there, and you went down. Remember that? And you got arrested, be standing on the porch with a black family.
Right.
And they brought you back, the police. And I said, yeah, Mom, I remember that.
Comedy, though. We still have great comedy out there. There's always rambling Joe Biden. Joe says shit that even people with Tourette's go, no. Joe is like your uncle who's on a new drug and hasn't got the dosage right. When FDR was on television, there was no TV back then. Come here, Joe. Sit down.
Over there. And Corn Pop was a bad dude. And he ran a bunch of bad boys. And I did. And back in those days, to show how things have changed, one of the things you had to use, if you used pomade in your hair, you had to wear a bathing cap. And so he was up on the board, wouldn't listen to me. I said, hey, Esther, you, off the board, or I'll come up and drag you off. Well, he came off, and he said, I'll meet you outside. My car, these were all public housing behind it. My car, there was a gate out here. I parked my car outside the gate. And he said, I'll be waiting for you. He was waiting for 3 guys in straight razors. Not a joke. There was a guy named Bill Wright, Mouse, the only white guy, and he did all the pools. He was the mechanic. And I said, what am I going to do? He said, come down here in the basement where all the pool filter is. You know the chain, there used to be a chain that went across the deep end. And he cut off a 6-foot length of chain. He folded up, he said, you walk out with that chain. And you walk to the car and say, you may cut me, man, but I'm going to wrap this chain around your head. I said, you kidding me? He said, no, if you don't come back. And he was right. So I walked out with the chain. And I walked up to my car. And those days, you used to remember the straight razor. You'd bang them on the curb, get them rusty, put them in the rain barrel, get them rusty. And I looked at him, but I was smart then. I said, first of all, when I tell you get off the board, you get off the board, and I'll kick you out again, but I shouldn't have called you Esther Williams. I apologize for that. I apologize, but I didn't know that apology was going to work. He said, you apologize to me? I said, I apologize for that, not for throwing you out, but I apologize for what I said. He said, okay, close the straight razor, and my heart began to beat again.
I learned a lot. And I made a lot of friends.
Did you ever save anyone's life when you were a lifeguard? Was anyone ever drowning?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, well, half a dozen times. Usually younger kids, but...
You do the thing with the whistle and then jump in the bathing suit? And
you got it.
No kidding.
A lot of university campuses. As a matter of fact, for 4 years, I was a full professor at the University of Pennsylvania. Grew up in a little steel town called Claymont, Delaware. A guy I grew up with, went to grade school, Holy Rosary with. He went on to the public high school. I went to the Catholic prep school. He didn't go to college, I did. But he was an independent trucker. His name is Tony. I saw him at Christmas time. I said, Tony, how you doing, pal? He grabbed my cheek and the Secret Service nearly shot him. He said, Joey. Angelo Negri was from, you remember Ange? Ange came up to me one day when they just had announced that I had flown 1 million some X number of miles on Air Force aircraft. And Ange comes up and I'm getting in the car and he goes, Joey, baby, what are you? And I thought the Secret Service was going to shoot him. I said, no, he's good. True story. Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
I remember standing there the next day.
Ground Zero in New York. And I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because from where you could stand.
He has done, I don't know if it's similar things, but he's sort of told some stories that don't line up quite like this before.
This president has a pattern at this point of either inventing or embellishing stories about his own past, his biography. He did it 3 times in one speech last month alone, he claimed he had witnessed a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh when he actually showed up about 6 hours later. He claimed that his grandfather had died just days before he was born himself at the same hospital. In fact, his grandpa died more than a year before in a different state, not the same hospital. And he also repeated a favorite false story that I and others have debunked over and over again about a supposed conversation with an Amtrak train conductor he was friends with, who was actually deceased at the time the conversation would have had to take place. And that's not all. There are some more serious ones in my view. Previously in his presidency, he claimed at one point he'd been arrested during a civil rights protest when, in other versions of the story, he just said an officer had taken him home from a protest. He said he had visited the Pittsburgh synagogue where worshippers were killed in a 2018 mass shooting. In fact, he had actually spoken to the rabbi, but never went. And he's made a whole bunch of others too. He said at one point, Republicans like to bring this up, he said that he used to drive a tractor trailer, he used to drive an 18-wheeler. Never happened. The White House later clarified he used to drive a school bus at one point as a job briefly. School bus, of course, not an 18-wheeler. So whatever his intentions, whether it's foggy memory about stuff that's going on decades ago or deliberate embellishment, this is an unfortunate pattern that keeps coming up again and again with Joe Biden.
I used to drive a tractor trailer.
Oh, awesome.
And so I know a little bit about driving big trucks.
No, that's great.
But I'm honest. I never found the body because there were a lot of cannibals for real in that part of New Guinea.
For real. It's always followed by a for real, or it's true, or I'm not joking,
right.
Or it's not hyperbole. So Biden's account is that his uncle, who's was part of a World War II crew, shot down, of course, not supported by any military reports or records. The Pentagon doesn't mention anything about cannibals, nor is there any evidence suggesting it. So maybe it was family myth and family lore. Yeah. I don't know.
He's worked a blue-collar experience during his Irish, Puerto Rican, Greek upbringing.
You said it, Will. He's Forrest Gump.
I learned early on was that I had a very close relationship with the Greek American community, for real. In the heart, real. In the church there as well. In the heart, real. Church there as well.
Why does that sound so familiar?
And let's lay one thing to rest. I may be a practicing Catholic. I used to go to 7:30 Mass every morning in high school and then in college before I went to the black church.
It was Rabbi Kraft and Rabbi Geffen. That's where I received my education. I probably went to shul more than many of you did. You all think I'm kidding. We have the 8th largest black population in the country, and between all minorities, we have 20% of our state is minority. And so I was sort of raised in the Puerto Rican community at home, politically. And that's the tradition I got raised. I spent a lot of time, I'm practicing Catholic, but I'd go to services on Saturday and on Sunday. You all think I'm kidding, I'm not. When you're involved in the civil rights movement as a kid in high school, I used to go down to the black church. I go to 7:30 Mass, I'm a practicing Catholic. Then I go to 10 o'clock. And then we sit and plan what we're going to do in terms of desegregation. You think I'm joking, I'm not. I got my education for real in the black church. And that's not hyperbole, it's a fact.
What the hell is going on?
The Greek American community, for real.
The black church.
In the Puerto Rican community at home, synagogues and Jewish community centers.